My name's Lee. I'm the Principal Managing Director of Ablestoke Financial Group. We founded Ablestoke in 2009, so we've been running now for just over 11 years. So business protection is one area we obviously talk to clients about. And often when you're talking to clients, a lot of it's based on what you've learnt, the theory of it, and you're explaining to people why they need to take business protection seriously. That was brought home to me very much so early on in Ablestoke's life. Things were going very, very well. We were going along, so the first few years the business had been growing. It was still a bit of a start-up at the time, and then all of a sudden the advice that we'd been giving business owners around business protection was very much brought home. Unfortunately, we suffered a real-life experience ourselves, and I can still remember the day. It was a Sunday morning. I woke up, I was actually in the garden with my son, and our head of HR called me. And to get a call from her on a Sunday was unusual. So I answered it wondering, why are you calling me on a Sunday? And she said, have you heard what happened to Rob? Now Rob was my business partner, so we'd set the firm up together. And of course I hadn't, so I said, no. And she said, last night Rob died. And all of a sudden, things changed for us as a business, as you can imagine. He'd been to a business meeting on the Saturday, and on the way home on his motorbike, he had apparently passed out, and he died. So this was very sudden, out of the blue, and had left behind a wife, 3 young children, and immediately, obviously, I thought of them and called her. But of course, quite quickly, the thoughts turned to, oh my God, I've just lost not only one of my very close personal friends, but also the business partner of the company. And as I say, all of a sudden it brought home the theory in real life, there was going to be some huge changes to the business. I had the real life, day-to-day things that I had to deal with. Coming in on Monday and telling everyone that one of the founders of the company and one of our good close friends had passed away suddenly. I had to, obviously, I was in contact with his wife and making sure that they were, as okay as you can possibly be. But then I had the real business issues to deal with as well. Fortunately, we'd taken our own advice, because if we hadn't, the impact could have been critical for the company. A lot of the business contacts and clients were actually personal friends and relationships of Rob, so suddenly they were under threat. As a start-up business, we had had some investment money early on, and all of a sudden I had investors calling me who'd found out, obviously concerned on a human level, but also concerned about their money and their investment, and what was Ablestoke okay, and all of a sudden you've got to, as I say, deal with all of these realities. We had, I had to make sure, I needed to make sure I was going to look after Rob's family as well. But as a new business, only been running for around 4 years, of course, we were doing quite well, but we didn't have lots of money, laying around in the bank. The business was worth money on paper, but we weren't in a position where we were able to extract money from the business. But suddenly my very good friend and business partner had a wife and children who'd lost their father, husband, breadwinner, etc. If we hadn't had business protection in place, I don't know what that would have looked like. Fortunately, because we did, so we had key man insurance in place, we had shareholder protection in place. For the key man, it meant that the business had some money, and so again, where potentially relationships were in jeopardy, we were able to shore up the business in terms of that. We were able to reassure our investors that actually we were sound as a business, and that there was nothing immediately that they needed to worry about. But most importantly for me, I was able to write a check to his wife for a significant amount of money that otherwise just wouldn't have been possible. And that, of course, wasn't going to bring Rob back, and it wasn't going to make their life, it wasn't going to make it better, because, you know, it was absolutely devastating for them. But if you talk to Emily, his wife, and she'll tell you herself, if we weren't able to give them that money at that time, the consequences would have been terrible for them. She would have had to sell her house, she would have had to move the children away from the home, they would have lost their friends. You know, you can just imagine the repercussions of that. Unfortunately, we were able to make sure, or help the fact that that wasn't going to be the case. So really, I'd say to other people, you know, because as I say, I'm the principal of a financial advice firm, and we give this advice to people, and sometimes it can feel like theory, even sometimes when you're giving the advice, not only when you're on the receiving end of it. Unfortunately, you only realise the reality of it when it happens, and then it's too late. This was completely out the blue. You know, I never expect. Rob was 42 years old. You know, as I say, wife, 3 young children. His wife was a lawyer, earned good money, but you know, she then had to stop work, look after the children, etc. And nobody ever thinks it's going to happen to them. And in fact, Rob had a very good phrase: was, "It always happens to somebody else." But of course, you're somebody else's somebody else. So, the one thing I'd urge people, and from personal experience, is don't think it's not going to happen to you. Hope it's not going to happen to you, and I hope it's not going to happen to you. I hope it's not going to happen to any of our clients. But it would be absolutely devastating, and it is devastating emotionally, but it doesn't have to be devastating financially, as long as you've taken the right advice and you've put the right things in place.